Ohio seeing the impact of decisions made on the national stage and the last-minute rush to vote on legislation here in the Buckeye State. Good morning, everyone. We welcome you to this Sunday morning. I'm Scott Light. So we have got a great group of guests this week, and let me introduce you to them right now. Romin Iqbal is back with us, legal director of CAIR-Columbus, the Council on American-Islamic Relations. Tracy Wimbush is here, the former treasurer of the Ohio Republican Party and former executive with the Mahoning County GOP. And we are always happy to welcome back Dr. Suzanne Marilli, professor of history and political science at Capital University. Welcome all. It's good to have you here. Let's begin with that travel ban, and I want to play a couple of comments that we got from some folks here locally. I mean, there are going to be some local impacts when it comes to this. Let's play those comments right now.
Regardless of the decision today, the travel ban remains what it has always been, an expression of animosity towards Muslims and a movement towards state-sanctioned discrimination.
They're just in despair and disbelief, and I think that's my reaction. It feels like I'm speaking at a funeral.
So that is certainly one side of this story, but you probably saw in our open there, President Trump, Romin calling this a tremendous victory for the American people. What's the impact here in Ohio?
Well, the impact here locally in central Ohio is that you have families who now will not be able to see their loved ones. There are families here who have a father, sometimes a child, sometimes a mother who is stuck abroad, and we have been facing these phone calls now since the decision came out of very anguished family members calling us and saying, look, I really want to see my father, I really want to see my son, and these people now unfortunately will not be able to see their family members because of this decision.
When you look at the Constitution and securing our borders, it is imperative that we make sure that America is secure, not because they're Muslim countries, not because of their religious base, but because of their fundamental belief of the hatred of America and our way of life.
The ban has roots in this politics of exclusion that Donald Trump ran on and continues to practice, the separation of families in such a horrific way without much planning, foresight, working through things, very careless work to begin with. And in the case of the ban, I think particularly the Yemen comes to mind because so many people there are losing everything they've had with the bombings and starvation. That is a human rights tragedy, and Yemen shouldn't really be on that list, or if they are, there ought to be some provisions for including our rules on qualifications for refugees, because there's simply no question that many people there are in threat of life and a future of life and so forth, loss of children, well-being, even the basic buildings and clean water and access to food. It's a tragic situation we face here.
Do you think President Trump has framed it? He'll talk about immigration, and then he'll immediately go to, we can't let MS-13 gang members into our country. To your point, those gang members, that may be 1/1000th of a percentage of people who are coming in. It is people coming here for asylum. They are fleeing oppressive governments. They want better economic situations for their family.
And I agree with that. And we should have a passage for them to come in and to make sure that we're still secure, whether it be M13, whether it be drug trafficking, whether it be whatever it is. The issue that we have here, and the problem that we have here, is keep on going to the campaign trail and not the policy. What people say on campaign trails, you can't take at full circle, no matter who it is. And we continue to keep biting back to the campaign and not to the policy. Now, again, we do need to do something about immigration. We need to do something about ICE. And we need to understand that this is not a new issue. This has been going on for decades. And the cowardness of our Congress, of the politicizing of their job every time they go to work, instead of dealing with the policies and the laws that govern this country, are dividing the American people and the globe.
But let's be clear. This decision now turns the president into an immigration czar. This gives him unfettered powers as long as, according to this decision, as long as the president can come out and say it's a national security concern. He does not have to produce evidence. He does not have to show in any way demonstrate why the factual predicate for what he's claiming. So he just has to come out and say this is a national security issue. Now, if you look at the crisis from south of the border, he calls it an infestation. He says these people are gang members. There is no reason to believe now that the president now will be unable to just expand the ban. And in fact, it's very likely that he will use the powers given by him by the court to now simply say a large category of countries from Central and South America, well, you can't come here either because it is a national security concern, and the issue now is that he does not have to produce the evidence.
What happened to Carter? Carter did the same thing.
He did.
What was the difference?
The difference was that he did that for one country which had taken over an embassy. There was the Republic of Iran at that time had taken over a U.S. embassy. There was an ongoing crisis. What the president has done is he has put all these countries on a list, and they have a year and a half, by the way, since the first ban. They have not been able to come out and show what is the factual predicate, what is the actual evidence, what is the actual risk that these countries pose to the United States. They have not been do that. They simply say it, and the unfortunate part is that the Supreme Court said, well, as long as the president says it, it's fine.
But there is information that comes within the confines of offices that aren't public. Because of national security, they have security clearances that you can't go out and talk about everything. Now, I understand that we may not comprehend everything that President Trump does or that he says, but when I look at the security of America, we may have to have a ban for all countries until we get our country right. Because right now, all countries, because right now, we have a serious problem within our own country. We have issues. We are paying for things that we can't afford to pay for and can't take care of the citizens that we have here.
Well, we go back. President Obama had a very steep learning curve on exactly this. He was deporting 400 to 500,000 a year in his first term, and there were protests. Finally, he and his policymakers adjusted such that they basically trusted many who were coming to find places to live and go to court. And it turns out that most did actually follow that rule in the high 90%. Sonia Nazario wrote about this recently in the New York Times, and she's been a long student of this, wrote Enrique's Journey, actually lived on the trains, followed the path of a former child who made it into the United States. So he went from the policy that costs so much a day, I mean in the hundreds of dollars, to $30 to $40 a day. But it took him 6 or 7 years to accept and get on board. I think what's really a problem here, again, is this partisanship that they're, as you said, Tracy, that they get in and they just are sort of built their media exposure, and we're forgetting our sense of history. We're forgetting continuities that presidents can learn from each other and build on achievements, past achievements,
I don't know
and
how
mistakes, learning from their mistakes. And why are they making them all over again?
Because President Obama, he deported something like 3.8 million
people.
Altogether.
Deported more people than President
So
Obama.
we need to understand this issue is, and the problem with the bias and the politicism of Congress that will not do their job, because we need to change immigration reform in totality, not just the dreamers, not just the children, not just the borders, but immigration, because it's not right, it's not fair, and you should not have to be a millionaire to come to America to live and get a green card for your wife.
Well, let's be clear, 2 points. Under President Obama, ICE was prioritized to basically deport the criminals. They were focusing on criminals. Yes, they deported a lot of people, but they were focusing on criminals. They were focusing on recent arrivals. This president has taken a decision that he has taken to, if you are an asylee, which means that you are escaping gangs from Central America, which means that you may be a victim of domestic violence, when these asylees are coming to the south of the border, this is not Congress. Congress has not told the president that separate the families from the children. This is the president's choice. This is a choice he has made.